My name is Elena Rodriguez, and when this all began I was just 17 years old. Back then I was the kind of girl who believed in love, loyalty, and family. I thought the world outside was what you had to be afraid of, not the people inside your own home. I believed that parents were protectors, not predators. But I was wrong. I wasn't murdered with a knife. I wasn't poisoned. I was sold. By the same people who tucked me in at night. My mother, my father, and even my older brother. They stood together and made a decision to exchange me for money, to save themselves. They didn't just abandon me. They buried me alive in a stranger's world, in a life I never chose. But I survived. And now, I've come back for every single one of them. I remember the morning it all started like it was yesterday. It was a Sunday, early. The kind of quiet that feels fake, like the world was holding its breath. I woke up to the sound of Mama banging on my door. Her voice was sharp, as usual impatient. Nothing new. Alina, get up and come downstairs. Wear something proper. She always had this tone like I was an inconvenience. Like even my breathing irritated her. I didn't argue, I never did. I just got up, washed my face, and slipped into that beige dress she liked. The one I hated. It clung to my body like it didn't belong to me, like it was meant for someone who didn't get to choose anything. Downstairs, the air felt different. Papa was sitting stiffly on the couch, staring at a man I had never seen before. The man didn't smile when he saw me, he just looked. Scared. His gaze didn't even bother to hide the fact that he was evaluating me like a piece of property. He wore a dark gray suit, and the most expensive-looking watch I'd ever seen. A thick gold band that sparkled under the flickering ceiling light. "This is Señor Delgado," Papa muttered. He didn't say anything more. No explanation. No warmth. I smiled politely and sat down, my legs tense, my heart confused. Delgado didn't reach out to shake my hand. He just tilted his head and said quietly, "Pretty. She'll do. She'll do." That sentence echoed in my ears. I looked at Papa and Mama. Neither one of them corrected him. Neither one reacted at all. I remember thinking maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's for a job, a scholarship, some weird opportunity they hadn't told me about. Because that's what parents do, right? They surprise you. They guide you. They protect you. But that night I overheard the truth. I was walking past the kitchen when I heard their voices. Papa's low and urgent. Mama's sharp and bitter. "She's our daughter," she hissed. "We're really going to go through with this. You want to lose the house?" Papa shot back. "We're 3 months behind on the mortgage. The banks are already circling. Delgado is offering a way out. By selling her off like livestock. She's 17. It's legal where he's taking her." That's when I froze. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so loudly I was afraid they'd hear it through the wall. I stepped back quietly, as if the house itself had become dangerous. As if staying quiet was the only way to survive. They were really going to do it. They were really going to sell me. And none of them planned to say a word to me about it until it was too late. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed, eyes wide open, watching shadows move across the ceiling, trying to convince myself I'd misunderstood. That it was just a horrible dream. A nightmare whispered through half-truths. But I wasn't wrong. 2 days later, Papa woke me before dawn. He didn't knock. He just walked into my room and turned on the light. "Pack a bag," he said. "Just a small one." I sat up stunned. "Why? Where are we going?" "You're going alone," he said, not looking at me. "It's already decided." I stood there frozen. "What's going on? What are you talking about?" But he didn't answer. He walked out like he hadn't just ripped the ground out from beneath me. I packed, still numb, still hoping it was a mistake. One big misunderstanding. But when we got in the car, and he drove in silence for 2 hours without telling me a thing, I knew. I knew my father had already handed me over in his mind. I was no longer his daughter. I was just cargo. We reached the airport. Standing by the curb was Delgado. Same cold suit. Same gold watch. Smile. Here, Papa said, thrusting a passport into my hands. I looked down. Had my face. But a new name. Elena Reyes. I'm not going anywhere with him, I whispered. My voice cracked. You are, Papa said. And you'll do as you're told. I looked into his eyes, hoping to find guilt, hesitation, anything. But there was nothing. Just emptiness. And then, like the coward he was, he turned and walked away. No hug. No goodbye. Just gone. Delgado grabbed my arm. And just like that, I was no longer Elena Rodriguez, daughter of a struggling family. I was a product in transit. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know who I'd belong to. All I knew was, my life, my future, my body, everything had been sold, by people who claimed to love me. And that was the day I died. But this story isn't about the death of a girl. It's about the woman who came back. And what she did to the people who buried her. I didn't cry on the flight. People assume you break down immediately when your life shatters. But that's not how it works. Real trauma doesn't scream. Goes quiet. Cold. Like your soul has slipped into a coma and left your body to move on autopilot. The flight was long. I don't even remember what country I landed in. Somewhere hot. The signs were in a language I didn't recognize, and everyone looked like they belonged, except me. Delgado walked ahead of me like I was luggage. He didn't speak to me. Didn't offer food. Just shoved papers at officials and kept checking his gold watch like I was making him late for something more important. When we got into the black car waiting outside the terminal, I turned to him. Where are we going? Asked. He looked at me with amusement, like a cat studying a cornered bird. You'll find out. I wanted to scream. I wanted to claw at the windows, throw open the door and run. But where would I go? I didn't even know what country I was in. I had no passport, no phone, no one. That was the genius of it. They hadn't just sold me. They'd erased every way I had to survive without them. We drove for over an hour through flat, sun-bleached land. Eventually we reached a tall iron gate. A mansion stood beyond it. A massive stone house with too many windows and guards at every corner. This is your new home, Delgado said. I didn't move. Get out, he snapped. Don't make me drag you. I stepped out slowly, legs shaking. I told myself over and over, don't cry. Not in front of him. Not now. Inside, the air smelled of polished wood, bleach, and something sharp beneath it, like fear. I was taken to a room upstairs. The door locked from the outside. There was a bed. Vanity. A closet full of gowns I would never wear by choice. Barred window. A cage dressed in gold. I waited for someone to explain. To speak to me. Feed me. Nothing. I sat on the edge of the bed for hours, staring at the floor, until the door finally creaked open. A woman stepped in, maybe in her 40s, wearing all black with her hair pulled into a severe bun. You will call me Madam Soraya, she said. You belong to the household of Mr. Omar now. You will obey without question, speak only when spoken to, and remain clean and beautiful at all times. Do you understand? No, I whispered. I don't understand anything. She slapped me. Hard. So fast I didn't even have time to flinch. You do now, she said calmly. I touched my cheek. I didn't cry. Not yet. But something inside me cracked. That was my welcome. I wasn't married. I wasn't adopted. I wasn't even a guest. I was property. The first week blurred together. I wasn't allowed to leave the room unless escorted. I wasn't allowed to speak to the other girls I saw cleaning or passing trays. I was dressed in silks and jewelry and told to smile when Omar came to visit, a man in his 60s with rotting teeth and hands that lingered too long. He would sit across from me and talk as if I were a doll, not a human. You are quite lucky, he said once. Your father gave you up with such eagerness. I thought he'd at least haggle a bit. But no. He named a price and accepted it without blinking. I stared at him, silent, choking on the bile in my throat. You'll come around, he smiled. They all do. Eventually. That night I broke. I curled up on the cold bathroom floor and wept until my throat burned. I didn't pray. I didn't scream. I just broke. But somewhere between the tears I made a promise. If I lived through this, if I got out, I would never forgive them. Not my parents. Not my brother. Not anyone who let it happen. One day I would come back. And when I did, I'd make them all wish I had stayed gone. Survival became a game of silence. Played dumb. Compliant. Followed instructions. I let Madame Soraya believe I was broken. I kept my head low and my ears open. I learned that Omar was powerful but careless. That Delgado came and went frequently. That other girls had come before me. And some had never left. One girl, Mina, was the first person to whisper a kind word to me. She brought me food when no one was watching. She pressed painkillers into my hand when I couldn't stand from the cramps and bruises. "You can't fight them," she whispered once. "But you can outlive them. That's what I'm doing. Just keep breathing. They can't take that." I never forgot that. That advice saved me more times than I can count. Months passed. Then years. I learned the language. Watched the guards. Memorized the routines. Waited. I studied. I became invisible and then useful. One day Delgado made a mistake. He took a call on speakerphone while I was cleaning the hallway nearby. He was laughing. Talking about how the Rodriguez girl turned out to be a solid investment. How the family begged for an advance on the payment 6 months after she was taken. How her brother came in personally to collect the cash. My brother. The one who told me he'd always protect me. The one who taught me to ride a bike and bandaged my knee when I fell. He took the money. They all took the money. That was the day every last thread of hope inside me died. But it was also the day something else was born. Vengeance. I never got the chance to run. Not on my own. My freedom didn't come from escape. Came from chaos. 3 years into my imprisonment, Omar was arrested in a government sting. Human trafficking. Money laundering. You name it. The entire operation collapsed overnight. And I was left forgotten. No one came for me. No one asked for me. So I walked out. Just walked out of the ruins of that mansion and into a world that didn't even know I was missing. Had no papers. No ID. No name. But I had something more dangerous. I had the truth. And the hunger to rise again. I won't tell you how I rebuilt myself yet. Not now. Just know this. It took 5 years of clawing through dirt, of learning, of making allies in the darkest places, and mastering every skill I'd need. Now I own companies. Now I wear the gold. Now they don't even recognize me. But they will. 'Cause I've come home. And it's time they pay for what they did. Coming back wasn't as simple as walking up to their front door and saying, "Surprise! Remember me." Well, that would be too easy. Revenge isn't about theatrics. It's about precision. Planning. Making sure every smile hides a dagger. Every moment pulls a string they didn't know was tied to a trap. Had been 8 years since they last saw me. I was 17 when they sold me. I came back at 25. With a new name, a new life, and the kind of wealth they used to pray for on borrowed Sundays. Now I was Elena Reyes, a luxury property investor, a philanthropist, and a woman impossible to trace to the girl they threw away. It studied them. Watched from afar for 2 years. My parents hadn't changed much. Still lived in the same crumbling house in the suburbs. Still put on church clothes every weekend like that would cleanse what they did. But my brother, Luis, he was doing well. Oh well. He had opened a real estate business. The kind that had shiny logos and empty ethics. And it was booming. I knew why. He'd used part of the money from my sale as startup capital. Blood money. He built his empire with pieces of me. That's what made him the perfect target. So I made my move. I started with a casual invitation. One of my companies was hosting a private investor gala in the city. Exclusive, high profile, flooded with wealthy names he'd want to impress. We sent a personal invite to Rodriguez Properties, addressed to Mr. Luis Rodriguez, offering him a rare expansion opportunity into international holdings. Of course he said yes. Luis never could resist the scent of money, especially when it came in gold-trimmed envelopes. The night of the gala, I wore a black velvet dress with a slit up to my thigh, diamond earrings, and a custom nameplate necklace that read, Elena. My hair was pinned high, my lips blood red. I didn't just walk into the room. I arrived. When I saw him walk in, taller, more arrogant, his hair slicked back like he thought he was someone important, something in me coiled tight. He was smiling, shaking hands, clearly proud of his place among the elite. He had no idea the most dangerous person in the room was someone he once left to rot in a locked bedroom halfway across the world. I approached him like a stranger. "Mr. Rodriguez," I said, my voice smooth, foreign, refined. He turned, his face lighting up at the sight of me, not with recognition but opportunity. "Miss Elena Reyes," I smiled. "Owner of Reyes International Holdings." His eyes widened slightly. "I've heard of you," he said, lying. "Your name's been all over real estate news." "I'm flattered," I said. I let the silence stretch just long enough to make him uncomfortable. Then I gestured to a quieter corner of the hall. "May I steal a few minutes of your time?" He followed like a dog chasing steak. We sat with wine, and I began to ask him questions I already knew the answers to. About his portfolio, his current projects, his ambitions. He bragged like a boy who thought he was a man. Every sentence was filled with ego and empty promises. "I've built everything from the ground up," he said proudly. "From my bones," I thought. "And your family?" "Yes. Are they in the business too?" He shrugged. "My parents. Retired. They're small-town people. I moved on from all that." "So you built your empire all by yourself?" I tilted my head. "No investors. No help." He hesitated. Just for a moment. "There was some seed money early on," he admitted. "A private arrangement. But that's old history." I smiled and leaned in. "Old histories have a way of returning, don't they?" He chuckled, clueless. "Well, if they bring profit, I welcome them." He had no idea who I was. He didn't recognize my face. Didn't hear my voice beneath the new accent. Didn't feel the past staring him in the eye. That made it easier. 2 weeks later I called him again, this time for a business meeting at a luxury hotel suite I had staged for exactly this purpose. When he arrived, everything was immaculate. Wine, contracts, silent background music. I was dressed sharp but not seductive. This wasn't a game of lust. It was chess. And I was 10 moves ahead. We discussed plans, partnerships, investment numbers. All of it fake. Then I handed him a manila folder. He opened it and began flipping through. First confusion, then tension. "What is this?" he asked. I let him read. Line by line. Transaction receipts. A copy of the contract Delgado signed with a forged signature from Andres Rodriguez, our father. Evidence that Luis had accepted a $40,000 transfer 6 months after I disappeared. A birth certificate. Photo. My face at 17. He looked up, pale. What is this?" "You don't remember her," I said softly. "She looked just like me." Silence. Then his face shifted. The truth finally hitting. "Alina." I smiled, but it wasn't warm. "Good to know you still recognize the girl you helped sell." He stood abruptly, knocking the chair over. "Alina, listen. Sit down." My voice stopped him mid-step. We didn't, I was just a kid. You were 20. Old enough to sign off on a wire transfer that made me someone else's prisoner." He swallowed hard. "We were desperate. Papa, he made the call. Mama didn't want to. They all agreed," I snapped. "And you came to collect." "I know." He looked at me, desperate now. "You don't understand what it was like for us." "No," I said. "You don't understand what it was like for me." I let him go that night. I could have destroyed him right there. Called the press. Released the documents. Ended his career. But that would have been mercy. Well, I had a better idea. I wanted him to live in fear. To wonder every day what I would do next. who I would tell, which empire I'd set on fire first. He thought I was giving him a second chance. But I was just giving him time. Because when I start burning things down, I want them all watching. It's strange how people can erase you so cleanly, then still live in your house like nothing happened. They cook in the same kitchen where they discussed your sale. They sleep under the same roof they paid for with your pain. They celebrate birthdays, hang photos, and go to church on Sundays with heads held high, like they haven't buried a child alive. My mother was no different. Mama, once the queen of quiet judgment and sharp looks, still lived in the same house I grew up in. Same yellow curtains in the living room. Same chipped wooden table where we used to eat rice and beans when things were tight. She kept the place tidy, humble. The kind of home strangers would call modest and hardworking. The kind they'd never suspect hid a secret so dark it could rot the foundation. I hadn't seen her in 8 years. But I'd watched her. She volunteered at church now. Worked part-time at a bakery. Smiled at neighbors. She was loved. Respected. No one knew what she had done. No one saw the monster in her. That made me sick. So I decided it was time she saw the ghost she thought she buried. I waited outside her bakery on a Friday afternoon. I knew her routine. She left at exactly 4:10 p.m., walked 3 blocks to the corner bus stop, and always paused to buy guava candy from a vendor named Maria on the corner. When she stepped out of the bakery, she didn't notice me at first. She looked older, grayer, a little thinner, but still proud in her walk. Still had that stiff posture and tight bun that screamed control. She greeted Maria like a friend, bought the same bag of candy, and turned toward the bus stop. That's when I stepped into her path. "Excuse me," I said. She stopped abruptly, eyes flicking up, and froze. Eyes met. She didn't say anything. Not at first. Her mouth parted slightly, but no words came. She knew. Maybe it was the eyes. Maybe the shape of my face. Or maybe guilt lives so close to the surface it doesn't take much to wake it up. "Hello, Mama," I said. She dropped the candy bag. Her hands trembled. "No, that's not. You can't be." "I'm real," I said. "And I remember everything." She stumbled backward, right into the bench behind her. She sank into it, like the weight of her crimes had suddenly landed all at once. You were gone. You were." Her voice cracked. "Sold. Finished. Discarded. Forgotten." She looked around wildly, like someone might overhear. Like shame could still be hidden. I sat down next to her, too close for comfort. "Don't worry. I'm not here to cause a scene. Yet." Tears welled in her eyes. Real or performative, I couldn't tell. Maybe she still didn't know how to feel when consequences finally came knocking. "You have no idea what we were going through, Alina." "No," I said. "But I do know what I went through." She tried to speak again, but I didn't let her. "You told me that I was dramatic when I cried about being bullied in school. You told me to toughen up when I asked why you loved Luis more. You told me I was selfish for wanting things." I turned to her slowly. "But you never told me you were planning to sell me." Her face crumpled. "We didn't know what else to do," she whispered. "There's always something else to do," I said coldly. "But you chose the easiest option for you, and the worst one for me." She looked down at her hands. "Your father, he was the one who—" "Don't," I warned. "Don't you dare shift it onto him. You signed the paper. You stayed silent. You watched me walk into that car." She sobbed quietly. I didn't comfort her. I wanted her to sit in that pain. To drown in it. Because for 3 years I had drowned in silence and filth and darkness, waiting for someone to come for me. Waiting for her. Hoping every single day that she'd appear out of nowhere and say, "I made a mistake. I'm taking you home." But she never did. She moved on. "Why are you here?" she finally asked, her voice small. "What do you want?" Understood. "You'll find out." Then I walked away. That night she couldn't sleep. I know because I had her house watched. She turned on the porch light 5 times. Poured tea she didn't drink. Sat by the window staring out like she thought the darkness was about to speak back. It was Over the next week I sent anonymous letters. One each day. Monday. A photocopy of the forged contract. Tuesday. A news article about Omar's arrest and the trafficking ring he ran. Wednesday. A copy of my forged passport with the name they gave me. Thursday. A childhood photo of me sitting on her lap. Friday, a simple note. Just 5 words. You buried me. I lived. On Saturday she didn't go to work. On Sunday she went to church, but left early. On Monday she called Luis. Panic. Rambling. I know because I recorded the call. She's back, Mama whispered. Alina. She's here. There was silence on the other end. Are you sure? Luis said finally. She was in front of me. I saw her with my own eyes. She's not the same, Luis. She can't do anything. She doesn't have proof. She sent me the contract, Luis. She has everything. Another pause. I'll take care of it, he said. No, Mama said, voice trembling. You don't understand. She's not angry. That's worse. She was right. Because fury burns hot and fast. But what I carried, 'twas ice. And I wasn't done yet. If betrayal had a face, it would be my father's. Not Delgado's, not Omar's, not any of the monsters who hurt me in that mansion. Well, it was Andres Rodriguez, my father, who started it all. He gave the word. He signed the contract. He drove me to the airport and handed me over like a suitcase full of guilt and silence. And then he went home. Probably stopped for coffee on the way back. Maybe even smiled. That's the kind of man he was. He believed that if he didn't pull the trigger himself, he wasn't responsible for the wound. When I was a child, I used to think he was the strongest man in the world. He built furniture from scratch, fixed leaks, lifted me onto his shoulders during parades, and told me the stars were close enough to touch. Now I know the truth. He wasn't strong. He was a coward who folded the moment life pushed back. After confronting Mama, I knew I couldn't wait long to deal with him. Luis was already squirming, and now Mama was paranoid. If I didn't strike quickly, they might try to leave town or cover their tracks. So I went for the one person who always pretended to be the head of the family. I went for Papa. He ran a tiny hardware store on the outskirts of town now. Rodriguez Tools and Repairs. Humble, struggling, nothing like the business his son flaunted in the city. He was inside when I entered. The bell above the door chimed. The shop smelled like dust, rusted metal, and oil, just like I remembered. He didn't look up immediately. He was bent over a counter, reading a bill and sighing like the weight of the world sat on his shoulders. When he finally noticed me, he smiled out of habit. Afternoon. What can I help you with? I just stood there. His eyes scanned me, first curious, then confused. Something clicked. But not enough. Do I know you? You used to, I said. There was a pause. Then the color drained from his face. Alina. I didn't answer. Didn't have to. His knees buckled slightly, and he gripped the edge of the counter. You're no. You can't be. You dropped me off at the airport like a package. I think I remember. He staggered back a step. I didn't have a choice. You had dozens. You just chose the one that ruined me. He swallowed. Tried to steady his voice. You don't understand what I had to do to protect this family. Protect? I laughed coldly. You sold me to a trafficker and told yourself it was noble. You protected your mortgage, your pride, your failures, not your family. He reached out like he wanted to touch my arm. As if that would undo anything. I stepped back. He lowered his hand. Alina, we thought you were dead. You mean you hoped I was? Silence. I begged God to forgive me, he said. I'm not God, I said. And I don't forgive. I left him standing there, shaking, broken, stunned. But I wasn't done. Words are just tremors. I wanted an earthquake. So I turned to what mattered most to him, the store. The next morning, my legal team submitted a fake but convincing acquisition notice, claiming unpaid debts, hidden tax violations and property liens. A legitimate-looking buyer had taken over his store. The paperwork was airtight. By sunset, a sign was placed on the door. Under new ownership. Effective immediately. He showed up the next morning to open and found 2 guards blocking the door. "This is my store," he barked. "Not anymore, sir. Read the notice." The neighbors came out curious. He yelled, threatened lawyers, called the bank, screamed at the street. And I watched from across the road, sunglasses hiding my satisfaction. He didn't see me. But when he collapsed onto the sidewalk, panting, muttering my name between curses and apologies, I knew I had finally become his ghost. But I wanted more. He took my name from me. So I took his. 3 days later, a news article broke. Anonymous sources alleging that Elena Rodriguez was being investigated for illegal contract work, unsafe equipment violations, and improper business registration. All fabricated. All buried in legal gray zones. I didn't need to destroy his body. Just his name, his reputation, his dignity. And it worked. By the end of the week, the bank froze his account. His supplier cancelled orders. The building lease was revoked. Rodriguez tools and repairs disappeared like I had. He went to Mama's house the following Sunday, drunk, furious. I watched them through a security feed I had tapped into from a neighbor's doorbell cam. "You said she was gone," he screamed. "She was," Mama cried. "She came back different, she's someone else now." Luis said he'd fix it. "She said she wants us to feel it," Mama whispered. "That she's just getting started." He smashed a bottle against the wall, sank into a chair. "She's going to ruin us," he muttered. "No," Mama said. "She already has." They still didn't know what I'd built. How deep my roots now ran. They saw me as a threat. What they didn't understand was that I had become a storm. And this storm was just starting to spin. They say if you cut off the head, the body dies. But that only works when the heart isn't still pumping. Luis, my brother, was the heart of the entire betrayal. He was the one who smiled at me before he left for university, telling me to stay out of trouble while ruffling my hair. The one who taught me how to hide broken things from Mama so she wouldn't scream. The one I admired like a second father. And the one who walked into Delgado's office 6 months after I disappeared and collected the rest of the money they sold me for. I watched the transaction happen in real time. I'd found the proof buried in an old email account Delgado used. A scan of Luis's ID. His signature on the receipt. A surveillance photo of him smiling after taking the cash. That image lives behind my eyelids now. So yes, I destroyed Mama's peace. I crushed Papa's pride. But Luis would bleed publicly. I began where it hurt him most. His image. Rodriguez Properties was sleek, shiny, and bloated with fake numbers. His reputation was the brand, and he was always hungry for attention. Magazines, award dinners, press releases. He loved to be seen, so I made sure everyone saw him fall. It began with whispers. An anonymous tip to a well-known real estate podcast about possible fraud in his construction reports. The next day, a local news channel received a flash drive with internal documents, edited by my team, showing suspicious payments to fake subcontractors. Then came the blog articles, the Reddit threads, the viral tweets. Luis Rodriguez caught in shady deals. Is Rodriguez Properties a shell game? Sources say silent investors are pulling out. His office released a rushed, defensive statement. Then a second, more apologetic one. Within a week, his main investor dropped out of a massive condo project. But I was only warming up. I reached out, as Elena Rodriguez, pretending to still be interested in a partnership. "Let's meet for coffee," I said. "I want to help." He came looking exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes. A sharp suit trying to hide the panic in his posture. When he saw me, he smiled faintly. "I have to admit," he said, sipping espresso, "things have been rocky. But we've been through worse." "No, Luis," I said calmly. You've never been through me. He froze. His cup stopped midair. I leaned forward. You stole my life, my safety, my future, and now I'm taking yours, piece by piece. He glanced around, face pale. You said you weren't going to expose us, he whispered. I'm not exposing you. I'm just applying pressure, reminding you how fragile your fake little world is. His jaw tightened. You think you're untouchable now, just because you've got some money? I don't think it, I said. I know it. I stood, dropped a flash drive on the table. Everything that's gone out so far, that's just the dust on the surface. I haven't even opened the vault yet. He reached for it, trembling. I walked away. Over the next few weeks, I launched a full-blown campaign against him. Anonymous lawsuits filed from shell companies. Whistleblowers paid to leak false employee abuse reports. An old photo of him partying with known scammers went viral. A fake audit revealed errors in his taxes. His social media accounts were hacked, filled with fake screenshots of offensive DMs and bribes. Each strike chipped away at him. Clients pulled out. Friends distanced themselves. TV hosts mocked him. And yet, I wasn't finished. The final blow came at the Real Estate Titans Gala, the biggest annual industry event in the city. Luis had won Entrepreneur of the Year 3 years in a row. This time he was nominated again. He still showed up, desperate to prove he hadn't fallen, wearing a fake smile and an even faker sense of control. I was there too. Not as Elena. Not as Alina. As a VIP sponsor, under the name of a company I had quietly bought out months earlier. When the host began announcing special awards, I waited. And when Luis's name came up, I stepped forward. The entire ballroom turned to look. Spotlights found me. A whisper rippled across the crowd. I took the mic and smiled directly at him. Before this award is presented, I said, we'd like to acknowledge one of the most important investors behind Luis Rodriguez's rise. He looked confused. I held up a copy of the wire transfer receipt. The same one with his signature. Without this money, I said, none of this would have been possible. And on the screen behind me, the projector lit up, showing the photo of him shaking hands with Delgado. A younger Luis. Greedy. Guilty. Selling his sister. Gasps erupted. Then silence. Then cameras. He stood up, stunned. Turn it off. That's fake. This is a setup. But it was too late. Security moved in. His face drained of color. I walked right past him. Paused beside him. Whispered, that's one debt finally paid. And left him standing there, surrounded by reporters, drowning in his own lies. By morning, he had been dropped by every partner. Rodriguez Properties was under investigation. And Luis, he disappeared. Deleted all his accounts. Went into hiding. Just like I had years ago. But unlike me, he won't come back stronger. Because he never learned to survive. He only learned to steal. One by one they're falling. But my story's not over yet. There's one last door I have to knock on. And this time, it's not a family member. It's the man they sold me to. And I'm not coming to forgive. I'm coming to finish what he started. There are places in this world that leave stains on your soul. You can scrub your skin raw, change your name, burn every trace. But some places live inside you. The mansion. Cage. The man they gave me to. His face haunted my nightmares for years. His laugh, a dry, sour sound that clung to the walls. His voice, always calm, always polite, like cruelty was just part of business. His hands, heavy, invasive, impossible to forget. I survived his house, his rules, his world. Now I was returning, but not as a girl who begged for freedom. I was coming as a woman with power. And I wasn't coming alone. The years had been unkind to Omar. After his trafficking empire collapsed, he avoided prison by vanishing overseas, hiding behind fake passports, offshore accounts, and private security. But men like him never live quietly. They think they're immortal, so they make mistakes. My team found him 6 months ago, tucked inside a compound on the outskirts of Marrakesh, surrounded by mercenaries and corruption. He was living like a king again. Not for long. I arrived at night, in a convoy of black SUVs registered under a company name he wouldn't recognize. My security detail wasn't just for show. They were ex-military, ex-agents, loyal only to me. As we approached the gates of his fortress, one of his guards raised his hand. "We're here to discuss business," I said in perfect Arabic. He narrowed his eyes. "Who are you?" I handed him a forged letter of intent. Investment terms. Signatures. A fake opportunity. The kind men like Omar couldn't resist. He waved us in. The gates opened. And I entered the place I once thought I'd never escape. Inside it was all polished tile, golden chandeliers and hollow echoes. The same scent still lingered, wood polish and wealth-masking rot. He appeared 15 minutes later. Older, heavier, but still arrogant. "Miss Reyes," he smiled, shaking my hand. "It's rare to meet a woman in your position." Smiled back. "And it's rare to see a man like you still breathing." He blinked. "Excuse me." I sat down slowly, crossing my legs. "I wasn't talking to you, Omar." His expression changed. How could he know? I looked nothing like the girl he once owned. I was powerful now. Polished. Scarless on the surface. But then, I pulled a photograph from my coat pocket and slid it across the table. A girl, 17, in a beige dress. Blank eyes. A ghost in skin. His hands froze. His smile evaporated. "Do you know who she is?" Yes. Silence. "You should. You bought her for $80,000. I stood, towering over him. "She was mine," I whispered. "And now you are." Omar's guards moved, but mine moved faster. Within seconds the room was locked down. His men were disarmed. 2 of them were paid off by me weeks ago. They turned instantly, forcing the others to surrender. Omar stood, hands shaking. "You're making a mistake," he growled. "No," I said. "You made it. Years ago." We dragged him into the basement. The same basement where girls used to be kept in silence. Now it would hold him. I didn't kill him. Well, that would be too quick. Instead I gave him what he gave me. Locked room. Cut. Camera. Silence. He would stay there until every single victim he sold had their name plastered across news networks and courtrooms. Until Interpol received the documents I had. Files taken from his seized computers. Videos. Proof. Until the world saw him for what he was. Not a businessman. Not a tycoon. Just a slave trader in a nice suit. A week later, Omar's name was global again. But this time it was in headlines like, "International trafficker unmasked by anonymous whistleblower." "High-profile predator caught in private compound." "Underground survivor network launches global justice movement." I funded every lawsuit filed. I helped every girl who reached out. I didn't want credit. I wanted destruction. And I got it. Omar was extradited, tried, and sentenced. Life without parole. No appeals. No money could save him this time. As I left that courtroom, wearing a black suit and sunglasses, reporters flashing lights in every direction, I didn't smile. There was no joy in justice. Just silence. But deep inside something unclenched. A piece of me that had been frozen for 8 years began to thaw. And yet, my story isn't done. Because while Omar rots in prison, there's still one person left who hasn't paid. Delgado. The man who arranged the sale. Who profited from pain. Who keeps dealing in shadows. He's next. And when I'm finished with him, there won't be a shadow left to hide in. You'd think the monster at the center would be the most protected. But Delgado, the man who arranged my sale, the broker who profited off hundreds of girls like me, wasn't hiding. Not exactly. He was thriving. He walked through airports in tailored suits, dined in skyscrapers, and shook hands with politicians who didn't ask questions. He didn't run like Omar. He didn't fear courtrooms or cameras. He believed he was untouchable because he wasn't the one doing the hurting. just the middleman. He called himself a consultant. His firm DGI International was a front, perfectly legal on paper. Logistics, trade, import-export. But I knew better. He moved people the way other men moved weapons. And now, I was going to move him into hell. Finding him wasn't difficult. My team had been tracking his movements for a year. He rotated between Dubai, Singapore, Geneva, and occasionally Mexico City. Never stayed anywhere longer than 10 days. His passport had more stamps than a mailroom. But money leaves trails. And power breeds enemies. All I had to do was push the right ones. His weakness wasn't women or greed or vanity. It was pride. He loved being the smartest man in the room. So I created a room he couldn't resist. We launched a fake tech startup. Sleek branding, a fake AI platform, flashy blockchain nonsense. Something futuristic and mysterious enough to catch his eye. We named it Nova Systems, complete with a fabricated valuation of $1.2 billion and silent investors listed in fake financial articles. Then we let the whispers circulate. Nova was expanding into secure borderless data transfer. Translation: off-the-books movement of digital money and people. Delgado bit. He sent a message through one of his clean middlemen. They wanted a meeting. The hotel was in Singapore. The suite overlooked the bay. Champagne chilled in a bucket of ice. My legal team, all actors, posed as executive board members. And Delgado walked in, smiling like a man who believed he was about to get even richer. He wore a gray suit, pale blue tie, not a single wrinkle. Expensive but quiet, the kind of luxury that whispers instead of shouts. "Ms. Reyes," he said, shaking my hand. "It's rare to meet someone with both money and vision." Smiled. "We're a rare breed." He sat, crossed his legs and leaned forward. "I've read about you," he said. "Reyes International. Very impressive portfolio. But I'm curious, why move into my line of work?" He didn't know. Not yet. I leaned back, fingers steepled under my chin. "Because someone once moved me." His brow twitched. Slightly. Continued. "I was 17. Promising. Obedient. Marketable apparently. My parents were desperate. You made a deal. Sent a car." His smile faltered. I watched it happen, the slow crawl of recognition across his face. I reached into my bag and slid a folder across the table. "Open it," I said. He didn't move. "Open it." He did. Inside were photos, documents, surveillance images. Proof that I had been inside his servers, his emails, his past. A list of every girl sold under his name. A copy of the Rodriguez contract, with his signature. And on the last page, a photo of me. As I looked back from that photo, 17, hollow-eyed and dressed for sale, Delgado finally understood. "You," he whispered. He nodded. "Elena Rodriguez. The one you forgot." He stood abruptly. My security, planted outside, stepped in instantly. He held up his hands. "You have no idea what you're doing." "I know exactly what I'm doing," I said. "I've been building this moment for years." "You don't want a war with me," he warned. "I already won," I smiled. And then I dropped the real bomb. "Every server you use, every private server, burner phone, offshore vault, own them now. Or I've cloned them." He went pale. "I have names, prices, payment methods, flight logs, receipts, encryption codes, facial scans, everything." He lunged toward the folder. My guard pinned him to the wall. "You'll go to jail for this," he shouted. "Extortion, fraud, blackmail." "I'm not asking for money," I said, rising slowly. "I'm giving you a choice." He snarled. "What choice?" "You confess. In camera. You name every partner, every buyer, every network node. In return, I might make sure you don't die in prison." He laughed bitterly. "You think I'll talk?" "No," I said. "I think you'll bleed." Then I stepped aside. And the door opened. And in walked Mina. That Mina. The girl from the mansion. The one who had slipped me food, whispered comfort, gave me hope. I had searched for her for years after escaping. She was alive, quietly surviving, running a recovery center in Cairo under a new name. When I finally found her, I cried for the first time in years. And now she stood beside me, taller, stronger, powerful in her silence. Delgado stared at her like she was a ghost. She didn't speak. She simply lifted her phone and pressed record. "I remember you," she said. Delgado collapsed into the chair. Then, talk. For 6 hours straight. 3 weeks later, international news exploded with leaks from a whistleblower known only as ER. Interpol issued 37 new arrest warrants. 3 governments launched investigations. 5 trafficking hubs were shut down. Delgado was arrested in Zurich and denied bail. And I disappeared again. Into silence. Into safety. Into power. I didn't need credit. But every girl who had been sold, silenced, and forgotten. Now they had something else. Justice. And someone who had come back for them. There's something poetic about returning to the place where your life ended. Not as a ghost, but as a reckoning. It had been nearly a decade since I last stood inside the house where I was born. The same cracked front steps. The same faded paint. The same worn-out welcome mat. Still lying at the feet of traitors. Only this time I wasn't coming in secret. I wasn't hiding. I was walking straight through the front door. And I was bringing truth with me. I sent the invitations a week in advance. Elegant, cream-colored envelopes. Gold trim. Wax seal. Inside, a handwritten message. Dinner. One last family gathering. No lies. No escape. Friday. 7 p.m. You'll want to be there. Alina. I delivered them myself. Mama trembled when I handed it to her at the bakery. Papa didn't open his. Just stared at me like I was a vision of his own guilt. Luis. He cursed under his breath but showed up anyway. Cowards always do. They didn't know what the night would be. But they all knew better than to ignore me now. That Friday evening, I rented the old community hall 3 blocks from the house. The same place they'd thrown birthday parties and wedding receptions. I had it transformed into something intimate, elegant, deceptive. Long dining table, white linen, candles, silver cutlery, flowers, table set for 4. Me, my mother, my father, my brother. The last meal we'd ever share. They arrived one by one. Mama first, face powdered, hands shaking. Papa next, silent, stiff, already sweating. Luis last, sunglasses on indoors, probably hoping no one would recognize his ruined reputation. I greeted them like a stranger welcoming guests. "Have a seat," I said, smiling. "We have so much to talk about." None of them spoke. So I did. 10 years ago I was a daughter, sister, a burden, apparently. I paced slowly behind their chairs. "You all made a choice. You signed contracts, whispered plans, collected money." Mama flinched. Papa looked down. Luis clenched his jaw. "You didn't just sell me. You erased me. Lied to neighbors. Told people I ran away. And when the truth almost surfaced, you buried it with silence." Paused behind Luis. "Until now." He finally looked at me. "What do you want from us?" Smiled. "I already took what I wanted. Your company. Your store. Names. Your peace." I pulled a small remote from my pocket. And click. The lights dimmed. Projector screen rolled down behind me. A video began to play. It was Delgado. Wedding. Broken. Naming names. Luis Rodriguez received a direct payment in May 2016. The sister was sold for $80,000. The mother and father signed off. I didn't meet the girl, just processed her passport. Then a second video. Montage. News headlines. Police raids. Survivors speaking out. Then photos. Me. Then Mina. Then dozens of others. All of us connected by the same chain. And at the center of it, them. My family. When the lights came back on, they were crying. Even Luis. I didn't know it would be like that, he choked out. You knew enough to take the money, I replied. Mama sobbed, mascara running. Alina, please, people will see this. Friends. Our church. Good, I said coldly. Because your shame should live where I lived. In public. I was trying to save us, Papa muttered. I thought one life for 4. One life. Snap. You didn't sacrifice one. You sacrificed 100. Because you didn't just destroy me. You helped fund a system that destroyed so many others. They sat in stunned silence. And I delivered the final blow. You've been invited here tonight because this is your last chance to speak. I handed them papers. Confessions. Full. Signed statements. Timeline. Regret. Luis laughed bitterly. You think we'll go to jail? No, I said. You'll go to hell. But first. I gestured to the back door, which opened slowly. A small crowd entered. Reporters. Lawyers. Police. All briefed. All watching. I promised the world I would expose the ones who betrayed me, I said. And I don't break promises anymore. Panic erupted. Mama collapsed into her chair. Papa stood sputtering, denying. Luis tried to leave, until he saw the detectives waiting by the exit. Too late. They were all trapped, just like I had been. Only I had earned my freedom. As they were led out in cuffs and shame, the cameras rolled. And I stood in the center of it all. Calm, composed, untouchable. Not a victim. Not a survivor. But a storm in heels and silence. That night I walked home alone. No entourage. No guards. Just me. The stars above were the same ones I used to stare at from my tiny bedroom window, dreaming of escape. Only now, I had escaped. And I'd come back to burn the house down, without lighting a single match. Done. Everything is over now. My mother, my father, my brother, Delgado, and Omar. Every single person who played a part in destroying me has been brought to their knees. Some were arrested. Some lost everything. Some simply broke beneath the weight of exposure. Their secrets, once buried and protected, are now carved into public memory. Their reputations are ruined. Their dignity stripped away. And the empire they built on fear and betrayal, the same one that nearly swallowed me whole, is finally gone. I stood at the edge of that dark world, the same one they tossed me into without a second thought, and I watched it collapse into ash. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. For the first time in years, I exhaled without trembling. But peace. No, not exactly. What I feel now isn't peace. It's quiet. It's the absence of war. And in that silence, there's a question echoing somewhere deep inside me. Who am I now without revenge fueling my every step? Who am I when I'm no longer chasing justice or sharpening my rage into weapons? They say justice heals. They say revenge poisons. Maybe they're both right. Maybe they're both wrong. All I know for certain is what I did and what it cost me. When the truth came out, the media did what it always does. They swarmed. Headlines screamed my family's name. Luis Rodriguez, the golden boy. The businessman, the brother who sold his sister. His face was everywhere. Mama tried to play the victim, to plead insanity, to act like she didn't know what was happening. Papa stood behind denial, saying he was manipulated, pressured. None of it mattered. The facts didn't need their permission. The world saw them for what they were. The community they lied to for years turned on them without hesitation. Their friends vanished. The church that once welcomed them shut its doors. Their home was repossessed. Their legacy, if you could even call it that, was shattered. And as they crumbled beneath the weight of the truth, they did the one thing they'd never done before. They begged. They begged for mercy, for understanding, for forgiveness. But the irony is, they never gave me a single moment to process what they did to me. They never gave me a chance to want anything. And that's why I didn't give them closure. I gave them consequences. But I didn't want to watch them rot in prison forever. That wasn't the goal. What I wanted, what I needed, was for them to feel what it's like to be completely powerless. To be exposed. To be dissected. To be seen for who they truly were. And once that happened, once they were nothing but headlines and shame and whispers, I left. I didn't stand in the spotlight. I didn't take interviews. I didn't write a tell-all. I simply vanished. One suitcase, no entourage, no cameras. Just silence. I got on a plane and flew to a place no one could find me. Not because I was afraid, but because I was finally in control of my own life. Chose distance. Chose peace. Chose me. Now I live in a quiet house by the ocean. The kind of place where mornings begin with the smell of salt in the air, and the sound of waves crashing gently against the rocks. I walk barefoot along the cliffs. I drink my coffee in silence. There are no reporters, no curious eyes, no whispers behind my back. Just wind and sea and stillness. My bookshelf is filled with memoirs from survivors. Some are stories I helped bring into the world, published under names you won't find on the covers. Others are raw letters from girls who write to me, not knowing my face but feeling my pain. I respond to them sometimes, never with my name, only with this: you are not broken. You were thrown into fire and came out forged. There are nights when I wonder if I'll ever fall in love again. If I'll ever feel safe enough to let someone into this rebuilt version of myself. If anyone will ever be gentle enough to hold all the broken parts of me without dropping them. But I'm not rushing toward that answer. Because for the first time since I was 17, I'm not running from anything. I am still. I am whole in ways they never imagined I could be. I am alive. One afternoon I stood alone in the sand, the wind tugging at my hair, the ocean stretching endlessly ahead of me. Mina joined me. She doesn't come often, but when she does, she says very little. We've seen too much. Silence feels safer. That day, she looked at me and asked the question I hadn't dared ask myself. Was it worth it? I didn't answer right away. Because how do you measure revenge? It doesn't bring back childhood. It doesn't fix the years lost. It doesn't erase the screams or the shame or the memories that sneak into your dreams. But it does something else. It stops the bleeding. Hands your voice back to you. It lets you become the author of your own ending. So I looked at her and said, yes, not because it healed me, but because it freed me. My name is Elena Rodriguez. I was sold. I was forgotten. I was broken. But I survived. Clawed my way back. I didn't just come back rich in money. I came back rich in truth, in power, in fire. I came back as a woman they never expected me to become. One who didn't forgive. One who didn't disappear. One who rewrote her story and made damn sure the world would never forget her name again. If this story moved you, if it made you feel something, if it made you remember your own fire, then do one thing for me. Like this video. Subscribe to the channel. And turn on the notification bell so you never miss a story like this again. Because here on Revenge Fury, we don't hide from betrayal. We confront it. We survive it. And then, we rise from it.